So considering Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride and Mila Jovovich's new action thriller The Protector both came out on the same weekend, it seemed fitting to discuss both films with a thought of who girl bossed it better? Funny enough, both of these female characters overcome obstacles in their wake, but also both stories do have somewhat of a tragic end. The Bride follows the fucking ghost of Mary Shelley, searching for the perfect victim to become her protagonist, as she lands on Ida, played by Jessie Buckley. And I almost didn't even realize it was her, as the only thing I've known her from is that acid trip of the film Men, and she was recently in Hamnet. But you really don't get to know much of her character or her backstory before she's suddenly overtaken by Mary and begins shouting obscenities and causing havoc in a nightclub surrounded by a bunch of dirty, rotten scandals and mob bosses. And now she's contracted some sort of British Tourette's possession syndrome. After her untimely demise due to her now not being able to keep her mouth shut in places you should and deciding to have an argument at the edge of a fucking staircase, we then meet Frankenstein. And I must say, Christian Bale did look like a good Frankenstein. I'd say he's a damn solid successor to Boris Karloff, and it makes me wish we could have had some crazy black and white R-rated solo Frankenstein movie with him to lead up to this one. And I know we got the Netflix Frankenstein film, which is so much better, so honestly it's not a total loss. But Frankenstein, or Frank as he's called, seeks out this scientist who will say is a bit of a fan of Victor Frankenstein's work and knows about his creation. And upon finding out this scientist is a woman, Frank then confides in her that he desires a mate. He's lonely and a monster and wants to feel love, which is practically every other man now in 2026. With little persuasion, she decides to help him and conveniently has everything they need to reanimate the dead. All that's missing is a specimen, and of course, Ida is the most recently deceased corpse that they could find. After her resurrection, she has no memory of her life before the accident, as they call it, and Frank tells her that they were to be married before said accident. He flat out pretty much lies to her, since she doesn't realize she's died. Mary Shelley's ghost is still riding shotgun with her and continues to have these feministic fits, and she's appalled by Frank's grotesque look and ends up becoming a bit of a martyr like in Todd Phillips' Joker, with women taking to the streets dressed as the bride in their own styles. Like literally, she's got this black ink solution that they injected into her to help with the reanimation or whatever, and it stained her lips right when she wakes up. She's like throwing up, and so women begin to copy that look and wear ink on the side of their lips, or like lipstick or whatever it is, mascara, and it just looks outrageous. Again, it's very much so like Joker. But what follows is a bit of a Bonnie and Clyde situation, with them running from the authorities after having hit a very modern nightclub where Frank ends up curb stomping some man trying to sexually assault his bride. She's not quite the bride yet, though. She will ultimately fall in love with him, and I won't spoil the finale, but let's just say Mary Shelley isn't going anywhere, and neither are her creations. Overall, it was an okay watch, but nothing close to the original story and feel of that original Bride of Frankenstein film. Shit, I'm sure I saw The Bride of Frankenstein as a kid back in the day, but couldn't tell you about any scenes or quotes, but I know it's nothing like this one. But Protector, on the other hand, is a lot more simple of a story, and Mila Jovovich plus action is always guaranteed fun, even if it's cheesy and over the top. It's almost the equivalent of Jason Statham. Anyway, Protector follows Nikki, a now retired Army vet who served almost her whole life in the Army. She's got a loving husband and practically lives on the battlefield until she ends up pregnant with her daughter Chloe. Now, of course, being a mother has its disadvantages when you're in the military. She's never home and arguably misses much of her daughter's upbringing. She's there through video calls for birthdays and life events, but is never really present. But she eventually has to come back home when her husband is diagnosed with some fatal disease. I don't remember if it's cancer or what, and with his passing, now has to be home for her daughter, who's just turned 17. It's your basic plot of a mother not being in her child's life, only to be dropped in at the 11th hour. On the night of her now 17th birthday, Chloe decides she wants to go out with friends, as she's not a kid anymore, with Nikki still grappling with trying to insert herself into her daughter's life after being away for so long. For some reason, Chloe then decides to sneak out through her fucking window, a bedroom window, instead of just telling her mom she's going out, which is absolutely hilarious, seeing her then out at this bar with her friends, kind of dressed like a stripper. I mean, remember, she's 17, dressing like she's damn near 28. And I mean, what the fuck? Your mom's in the military. You don't think she'll find out in the end with some major consequences? Anyway, Chloe and her friends are out there at the bar when she meets this guy, and her friends just kind of leave her there with him. Like, what the fuck? Absolute worst friends ever. Leaving her with some random guy just because she's hot? Classic. Of course, Nikki has GPS on her daughter's phone, so heads out to the bar to bring her home. I mean, again, she's only 17. How they even got drinks and got into the bar is beyond me. But of course, it turns out the guy she met is a damn scout for a human trafficking ring. Naturally, as Nikki enters the bar, she actually sees the young man dragging her unconscious daughter out the back of the bar, and honestly, you would think someone would have stopped them, but maybe they thought, she came with them. What follows is an absolutely epic chase scene with Nikki hanging onto the outside of the car of this guy, trying to get her daughter back, but she ultimately fails and they get away. Now, as the tagline of the film says, nothing will get in between a mother and her child, Nikki shoots and fights her way up the human trafficking totem pole to get to her daughter, and you can't blame her. I would fight tooth and nail to keep my child out of such a situation. And as cheesy as much of the film was, I was all for knowing she would most likely get her daughter back in the end. I must say, the twist of this movie was so sad, but also pretty damn good. Hilarious, but heartbreaking. So I would definitely suggest it over The Bride. One was a modern indulgence of a wannabe Hollywood monster period piece, and the other one was just a mother searching for her daughter. And though Jessie Buckley delivers a very radical take on The Bride of Frankenstein, what her actions set into motion completely dissolves the heart of that original tale. Milla Jovovich, on the other hand, plays the same badass type of woman she's played since the Resident Evil franchise, and it's at least a mostly believable mother desperately searching for her daughter. It's basically Taken, but with a mother instead of the father, so you can get behind her using her particular set of skills to get back what was taken from her. In the end, Protector was the better film for me. Mostly believable, heartbreaking, action-packed, cheesy, and ultimately just a better watch overall. Honestly, either film could have went straight to streaming, but with Maggie being the sibling of actor Jake Gyllenhaal, it makes sense why at least this film went to the theaters. It's nepotism, baby. And Protector easily could have been a Netflix movie, as I don't think many went to go see it, unfortunately. But every parent can relate to the horrors of possibly losing a child. Again, Taken did it better, and it's a trilogy, but I'd watch Protector 2 if they made it. It just hit harder than seeing some random woman get possessed by a famous author only to die and become something she wasn't actually meant to be. Ultimately, I think girl boss films can have their place in the cinematic landscape, though it depends. Protector worked with Milla Jovovich in the lead, but The Bride should have been something deeper and way less superficial. I mean, the dance number in the film was probably my favorite part, even though it had nothing to do with the original Tale of Frankenstein's Bride. But everyone is entitled to their own interpretation, and Maggie just chose a not-so-good one. But either way, check them both out in your own time. But if you're a fan of the Taken movies, I would highly suggest Protector. If you want to see a woman rant and rave in a British accent running around and getting freaky with a Hollywood monster, then shit, The Bride is right up your alley. Either way, I'll definitely be praying for a reboot of Charlie's Angels with Sydney Sweeney, Annie de Armas, and Jenna Ortega. I mean, it would be pretty rad. I mean, if you want a feminist powerhouse movie, you just gotta do it right. Man, this has been Ghost in the Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Now standing before me, full of life.
A more blasphemous act I've never laid my eyes upon.
So future Ghost here, but while I was editing this video together, I realized that there was another Frankenstein's Bride movie that came out earlier this year in February. Absolutely hilarious, right? It's from the studio The Asylum, and they're the ones that make all these really campy horror B movies, Sharknado, Meth Gator, Z Nation, and apparently this film follows the bride seeking revenge on the villagers in her area that killed Frankenstein, that killed her husband, right? It's absolutely ridiculous, but it also seems like there's a twist where Frankenstein's creation, like his serum or whatever he used, got out, and other people are using it to create this army. It looks absolutely ridiculous and over the top, but way better than The Bride. So I'm gonna have to check it out. But look into it. It's from The Asylum. It's literally called Frankenstein's Bride, not The Bride, right? And then also I forgot to mention that in The Protector, Papa is in it, right? The guy that plays Papa from Stranger Things, which is absolutely hilarious because Milla Jovovich's character almost seems like some type of super soldier where she could have been, one of those experiments that Papa was working on. So it was just genuinely fucking hilarious. Shit, maybe her character is actually 11 grown up. Be wild, right? What a twist. What a twist. I just thought that was fucking hilarious. Yeah. We had 2 Frankenstein Bride movies in the same year. Ain't that some shit?